Today's video is going to be about the oxygen dissociation curves for hemoglobin and myoglobin. Um, so just before we start, I'd like to reiterate the point that myoglobin can only bind one molecule of oxygen because it only possesses one heme group. But hemoglobin, on the other hand, it can bind four molecules of oxygen because it has four heme groups within its structure. Okay, and I've got a picture here of a oxygen dissociation curve, and there are several curves on it. There's myoglobin, hemoglobin, HbF. This is basically fetal hemoglobin, and I'm not going to talk about it in this video. This video is just about hemoglobin and myoglobin. I'm going to make a separate video on fetal hemoglobin. So we're just going to focus on myoglobin here and adult hemoglobin, HbA here. Okay, so when we're looking at this oxygen dissociation curve, we have increasing amounts of the pressure of oxygen on the x-axis, and on the y-axis we have percentage saturation of the myoglobin or hemoglobin. So however much it's full, or what amount in a percentage it's full. And on the x-axis we have the amount of oxygen, so the pressure of oxygen. So as we can see here, the oxygen is increasing as we go along, and this hemoglobin curve is here. We're going to talk about hemoglobin first. Now this curve here, it's known as the shape of the curve is known as a sigmoidal shape. And what this means, this particular type of curve, or what it shows, is that the subunits all work together when oxygen is being bound. So the overall effect, which is shown here, is that when one subunit of hemoglobin has bound oxygen, the other subunits which are left, they have a greater affinity or attraction for oxygen. So as soon as one oxygen is bound, that means the hemoglobin will take up oxygen a lot faster. Okay, and this is myoglobin, which we have here, this curve here, and the shape of this curve is hyperbolic. And what you can see is that the myoglobin, it's at any point it's more saturated than hemoglobin. So this shows that the myoglobin can take up oxygen at a lot more lower partial pressures compared to hemoglobin. And this makes sense because, remember, in the muscles, which is where the myoglobin is, its role is to increase the amount of oxygen within the muscle cells. And remember, the muscles don't have a lower amount of oxygen, right? So myoglobin is going to take up the oxygen and then transport it within the muscles, so it's used for the synthesis of ATP. So it has to take up the oxygen at very low partial pressures. This is why, as you can see here, even at low amounts of oxygen here, the saturation of the myoglobin is still high. Okay, and these are just some notes at the bottom. And I forgot to mention the hemoglobin, the fact that the binding of oxygen on one heme group increases the affinity for the heme groups which are remaining. This effect is known as heme-heme interaction. Okay, so that's today's video on oxygen dissociation curves for hemoglobin and myoglobin. I hope it's been useful, and in the next video I think I'll make it on fetal hemoglobin, so make sure you're posted for that. Thanks for watching.